Hi guys, and welcome back to Football Fix. Today we're going to be talking about Manchester United and the problems surrounding the club at this moment. Because for us, we believe there's so many problems, it's something that we just have to get stuck into. Today I'm joined by Thomas.
Hiya.
The problems with United, as I'm sure you've heard on the telly, it's been one of the main stories across social media and just the media in general. Gary Neville, he's been harping on about it for months now, never mind how poorly United have started this season. But yeah, we'll get stuck into it today. There's many things we'll be talking about.
Yeah, there's quite a few contributing factors that have sort of led to United having this point in time where they are not a club that a player is going to want to go to, as seen with Frankie de Jong. They are still one of the biggest, if not the top two biggest clubs in the world, but they're in a state where it looks like the trajectory is only going downhill. They've obviously lost their first two games of the season, which we'll discuss later, but they haven't really shown much about them to show that they're a well-run club that can improve and go and get better. You think of Ten Hag, there's questions about whether he is the right man for the job, certainly. Obviously, it's played down a bit at the moment because it's only 2 games into the season. But the players don't look interested. And there are a lot of skeptics about Manchester United in total. You look at Gary Neville and the more vocalised criticisers of the club, and they usually put all their eggs on the actual owner's basket. Now, I'm going to sort of not defend them because I don't think there is any defending the owners. They are not good owners, but I'm going to put across a different point of view because one, I like to do so, and two, I don't think that it is solely their fault because they've always invested in the club. They've always put forward money. Whether it's the right money or not, that's a different matter. Whether you could blame Ed Woodward for the transfer policy previously, bringing in Harry Maguire for 80 mil, bringing in Wan-Bissaka for 50 million. The investment has been used poorly, but the investment has always been allowed to be used by the United owners. So I think that's a key point to sort of investigate. But overall, I want to just sort of sum up what's going wrong at the moment at United, as in this season. Obviously, we did a video previously on the channel of how to fix United in the transfer window, but they've started disastrously. It doesn't look like anything's going to change soon, especially the way they're playing. They've got Liverpool next, who have drawn their first 2 games, but it's still Liverpool. They've still got the better quality. They've still got Jurgen Klopp in charge. And it looks like it's a no-brainer that Liverpool will win that game.
Yeah. I think the issue with United is while they've spent a lot of money, it's over $1 billion over the past 10 years it's been. I think this is something that Gary Neville said a lot, and I think a lot of United fans are feeling, is that the Glazers haven't put pretty much any of their own money actually into the club. All the money has come from them qualifying for the Champions League or their successes in the past years, especially under Ferguson. So, and this is a thing that I think we'll definitely come on to in more depth, but the stadium as well, they've not put any money. That is a stadium that is long overdue some repairs, and they're not going to have the money when they're spending this massive money that's coming just from how they're doing as a football team rather than the owners bringing the money in. I think they're going to really struggle because the stadium, it's almost on its last legs, so it's needing a lot of repairing. If you compare it to some of the other big teams in the Premier League, Arsenal have still got a fairly modern stadium. Spurs have got one of the most modern stadiums and the best stadiums in club football at the moment in Europe. City have still got a modern stadium. There's a couple others that maybe Stamford Bridge needs a bit of work as well, but I think with their new owners, they're definitely going to put some money in, as we've already seen. But so I think it is a bit of a worry with the stadium. The stadium is something that it seems like such a normal thing that we just be like, oh yeah, we'll put the money towards it, make sure we don't have any issues with it. But when that starts happening, you have to look a little bit deeper to where your problems lie, I think.
Absolutely, like without a doubt, the stadium is probably. I'd imagine there's been calls for it to be replaced, like as in they'll move to a new stadium. There's been calls for it to be taken down and built on the same area, so it's literally the same. It'll be a new Old Trafford, so to speak. And there's also been calls for it to be renovated and fixed up. None of them will be a cheap fix, and that is something where the owners will have to invest sooner rather or later. That being said, I think with the statement, other than with the stadium, of the owners not spending their own money sort of thing is a bit misleading. And the reason being is you can still have success with owners who don't spend money. And United has still spent vast amounts of money in the transfer market. I get it with the stadium because the stadium is their responsibility. They own the club. They need to fix it up. They need to make sure all the facilities are top notch. And the amount of money it's going to take to renovate Old Trafford or do whatever you're going to do with Old Trafford, it's going to need the owners to pull their hands out of the pockets. But with actually success and getting to where this footballing team is now as an institution and where the brand is now suffering at this point, I don't believe that the non-investment from the owners is the sole reason for that. You look at Liverpool, for example, since they've brought in their new owners, they've been highly successful. Now, their owners have a strict spend what the club make policy where they don't invest their own money in. They use the club's assets, e.g. Coutinho bought them, Van Dijk and Alisson. E.g. was it last summer or the summer before, they didn't spend a single penny in the transfer window. So it shows that you can have vast amounts of success in a football team without necessarily spending your own money if the club makes enough money. And United as an entity definitely makes enough money to be able to run off its own devices, off its own brand deals, off its own income sources. So for me, the point isn't really needed in terms of the success of the team, which is what we're evaluating here. In terms of the stadium, absolutely, fully agree. But in terms of the team and where they've headed, it is just bad decision after bad decision from a recruitment standpoint that has led them to this situation.
Yeah, I think for the future as well, that's something I didn't mention before, is they've taken out, I think it was a £600 million loan, the Glazers, or they did 5 or 10 years ago. And this has been the funds that they've been using for a lot of their transfer business as well, because they need it, to be honest. Because if you think about how many players they're actually selling for big money, some of the business they've done over the past 5-10 years, it's just been awful. I mean, some of the big money signings they've made and then let them go, it's a bit ridiculous. So I just think for the long term, the club, they're constantly they need to repay this debt back at some point. So I think for the long term future of the club, they're always going to struggle with this £600 million debt hanging over their heads.
Do you not think, though, that the debt will be repaid when the Glazers sell up, whenever that is? Because the Glazers are business people. They've brought in, they've used the club as leverage to get the loans in to then purchase the club, right? So ideally, their idea of a business, they make money while the hay shines, so to speak. So they use the club, they make money while they're there at the club, getting in the financial deals, getting in the assets, getting their brand as a whole, as in the Glazers, getting more commercial entity, because obviously they are Manchester United's owners. And then they sell up at the end of it. They pay off that debt because it's their debt. I know it's a worry because they leverage the club with it. So they've obviously bought out the club. They put the debt in the club's name. So that will always be something that hangs over Manchester United until they leave. But I can't imagine that they wouldn't sell the club, pay off the debt with the sale, because you're going to imagine they're getting 6 to 7 billion for Manchester United. It's still Manchester United. It'll be a huge amount of money. So in essence, 600 million isn't a lot, especially when, what did they buy it for? Was it 3.2 billion? I might be incorrect, but they'll be making vast profits at the end of the day.
Yeah, I worry though, because I think it's becoming, as the years roll on, I think it's becoming a less attractive club for someone to go and buy. I think it's still there, but when you've got the £600 million debt, then you've got the stadium that needs redoing. I think if they were to sell the club and they were to get the peak of where it'd be realistic for someone to actually want to buy the club off them, it would have been a few years ago, before all the issues with the stadium started happening. And because I think that's what they needed, to be honest, a couple of years ago, maybe after Mourinho left, to stop the changeover of managers happening so regularly. I think a new owner would have been the perfect thing for them, so they could get a good manager in, back him fully, let him make all the transfers he wants, before United have got this even worse sort of idea about them now.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, I don't think the global brand of Manchester United is affected too much. They might have gone down from the first biggest club in the world to the second, to Real Madrid, but like maybe at a push, but it's still Manchester United. Commercially, they're still huge. They're still pulling absolute insane amounts of income. As an entity, they will survive purely because of the size of the club. That even if they get a little lower, it'll always trickle and trickle on. The entities in their own, these massive football clubs like Liverpool, United, Real Madrid, Barcelona, any of them, even Man City, even who don't necessarily have the widest fan base in the world, they would be able to sustain themselves on their own. So I'm not too sure that is the biggest point to why United are where they are. I believe it pays a massive, massive hindrance to them because obviously you want an owner that gets involved. You want an owner that acts like Manchester City's owners, where they invest in the city, they invest in the people surrounding the club, and they invest in the team. But that's not always realistic. And also, I want to put to you before we move on from the owner subject, because I'm cautious of the time for that regard. When it's an owner, do you believe that owners can save face and change their strategy? So you look at Arsenal, for example, for years, there was the silent Stan. You had him he never attended games. He had, I think it was 90% ownership of the club. In 2018, he got 100% ownership of the club. And since Josh Kroenke especially has played a much more active role in developing the club, they're now trying to they've now invested money in the club, which they never did before. So do you think there's anything that could sort of make the Glazers change their ideology? Do you reckon there's anything that could sort of pull them into the major franchise that is Manchester United and try and get them to be successful again?
Yeah, I think there is. I don't think they can fully get rid of this bad image, nor can United over the next few years. But I think something they could do is just being there. I think, as you said, with was it Josh Kroenke, who's actually been? I was watching the All or Nothing documentary. He's been featured in a few of the episodes. I think it's just a bit of reassurance to actually see your owner there. And I think if the Glazers actually came to Manchester, were getting involved and giving a bit of reassurance to the fans and the players, to be honest, I think the uncertainty is the biggest thing that is a problem for the Glazers and then for the United fans, because the fact that they're all the way in America and then you don't hear anything about them, there's no reassurance when you need it, say if they don't sign someone, or say in this Ronaldo situation, if you get some reassurance about just what's happening, they need clarity, the United fans, at this point, because when you've got your owners not putting their own money into the club, you've got a massive debt, you've got the stadium going into turmoil, you just need to be told what's happening, what's the plan for the club, and just because it would help the Glazers as well if they gave everyone that reassurance, then they might actually start to. Well, I don't think they would ever get fully behind them, but then they could almost turn the tide a little bit and get the United a small proportion of the United fans to understand where they're coming from, I think.
I'll tell you what, right? And football fans are fickle fans. If the Glazers not rebuilt Old Trafford, but fixed up Old Trafford completely, they invested into the club with the right people in charge of transfers, etc., to the extent that United were challenging for league titles again and winning Champions Leagues again, then I have no doubts in my mind that United fans would then like the Glazers.
Oh,
the ownership is, if the club's being successful, it doesn't matter if you're there. It's as simple as that. Don't matter if you're showing your face. If the club is winning the league or winning the Champions League, no fan in the world is going to care if the owner's watching the game from his house in Miami or at the stadium at Old Trafford. It wouldn't matter. It's the fact that the team has gone down and down and down since Ferguson left, slowly, and you could see it coming. You could project what was going to occur at Manchester United. And I think we may, and we definitely actually know, I think we have reached the lowest point that it's been since I've been alive at Manchester United this season. And I think one thing we have to go straight into, and I think we just go from the owners now and talk a bit more about this season, is firstly, is Ten Hag the right man to sort this mess out?
Yeah.
And secondly, the squad overhaul that's needed there, coupled with a transfer strategy, because I look at the transfer strategy they've employed. De Jong doesn't want to go to them. They need to give up on that now. It's very clear of that. He prefer to move to Chelsea. They spent all summer trying to waste time going for him. He's clearly not the man. Marco Arnautovic, I'm not being funny, is not the man to bring them to replace Ronaldo. You've got Cunha, who's been linked today from Bayern for 40 million, that's an expensive mistake waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like, there's no joined up thinking.
No.
And I don't know, there's no strategy. It's not even that there's no joined up thinking. If a team buys three 35-year-olds, right, who are Premier League proven and a quality, but they're doing the last year, sort of last term of their contract, you can be like, oh, they're bringing in experienced players with Premier League experience. Fair enough. But there's literally nothing. Like,
No.
they brought in what? Lissandro Martinez, 24-year-old, to play him centre back, who Arsenal were targeting as a left back because they didn't think he was good enough in centre back. Now, at the moment, I trust Arsenal's scouting network because of the transfers they've done recently, Martinelli, etc., and because I'm an Arsenal fan. Have to admit, bit of bias in there. But transfers at the moment for Arsenal are largely a success. United, though, are buying him and trying to play him centre backs next to Maguire. Now, I've never seen a centre back look so lost in my life as I have done with Mr. Martinez in the first 2 games. So that was a mistake.
Yeah.
The squad's a mess. There's no balance to it. McTominay and Fred look like they're starting in midfield still. They desperately need some muscle and enforcement in there, probably in the likes of not De Jong, of Ndidi or something like that.
Yeah.
There is no joined up thinking at Manchester United in terms of the transfers. I don't think there's any joined up thinking in terms of the management because realistically, about 6 months ago when they had the chance, they should have brought in Antonio Conte because as long as you give him money, he stays happy and he manages to get the best out of a bad bunch. And United certainly are at the moment a bad bunch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the issue is, I think Ten Hag, he's got a philosophy. He wants to play passing football, fluid football. But I don't think you can just go like that and just start playing it with the majority of the team being the same players that were with the last manager, because the players that he needs for that, I think De Gea is a great keeper, but in the first 2 games, it's been evident that he's not good enough passing out the back. I think that's something that he needs a keeper who can play out calmly, like Ramsdale does, like Ederson does. He needs not a similar sort of keeper that can play out easily. And in midfield, he needs someone who can receive the ball under pressure, turn and play that perfect pass. Because you've seen in the first 2 games of the season, especially against Brentford, it was for me, they had to stick Eriksen there because Fred and McTominay were dropping into that defensive midfield role and they couldn't handle the ball under pressure. So he put Eriksen there, and that's just not his role. And you saw he got caught out by Jensen, and then they scored straight afterwards. So
I think Fred would be all right if they had an enforcer next to him. It's the fact that they're playing McTominay, who I genuinely don't believe, right, McTominay would get in any other team in the Premier League in their starting 11. I watch him.
It'd be tough to say.
I watch him and he's horrendous. I don't even think he'd get in Fulham's midfield.
I mean, yeah, that Palhinha they brought in is leaps and bounds better than him. It's ridiculous.
So, I mean, they don't have a coherent squad. The balance is all over the show. It's got about 5 managers, different inputs into it. You think Luke Shaw, you think Eric Bailly, even Lindelof. They've still got Phil Jones there from the Alex Ferguson regime.
I know,
who's on 75k a week. Like, I know he's happy to be there, but his injuries he should have been gone about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything bad of him, but you think Rashford, right? Great player early coming through, falling off the boil. You think Martial, he should have been gone 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much deadwood, and it just reminds me of Arsenal under like Emery and when Arteta first came in with Socrates, with Mustafi, with David Luiz, with Lucas Torreira, with to a lesser extent, Willian, who was brought in later, but there's just so much dross, and they need to just start terminating contracts at this point and bringing in new people.
Yeah, it is getting to that stage. I think it's a tough one to say. For me, it's a tough one to say whether them getting rid of the global sensation football icon Ronaldo at the end of this transfer window is the right move, because it's looking like he's obviously not happy. He wants to play Champions League football. But at the end of the day, he did score the majority of United's goals last season. So, and I think it is a bit of a state. They do need to replace him. The point is, if they get rid of him, if they let him go somewhere else, they need to replace him with a striker who's gonna fill that void of 15, 20 goals a season that he had last season. I just don't think they can get by, because you can't. Martial, we've not really spoken in the most positive light about him already, but he's not a striker that you can rely on as your main striker.
He's not, but you don't necessarily need a cohesive plan. You don't necessarily need goals. I think with Ronaldo, you have to think about the collective here. Now, like it or lump it, Ronaldo is the best player at Manchester United. He's the biggest star at United. He's arguably bigger. No, he's not bigger than the club, but he is huge.
Yeah.
If you have a 23-man squad or whatever, and 22 of the players, aside from Ronaldo, or even 20 of the players, don't like Ronaldo or don't like his whinging or his attitude or something, they're clearly not happy with him anyway, the players, because otherwise the stuff would be leaked. And he doesn't like the fact that the players aren't good enough. Whether or not Ronaldo is the best player, you get rid of Ronaldo because he is the common denominator of being the problem.
Yeah.
Then you hopefully the morale then comes back up, and then you develop from there and develop a team ethos with the morale being more collective, and try and improve from there and grind out results, because United aren't going to come relegation zone. They aren't.
No.
They're also not going to come top four.
No.
So anywhere in between, to be honest, it doesn't even matter if it's not in Europe. Anywhere in between doesn't matter, as long as by the end of the season, from now, they have a positive trajectory.
Yeah.
They need to get the players on side. They need all the players to have good morale, and they need to sort out the issues in the club in the background. Now, whether or not this is the sort of Ronaldo paradox, the Ronaldo problem, him being there is stopping their overall future development, because no one in the squad seems to get on with him, or the vast majority don't. Ronaldo's clearly got 22 goals last year. He's clearly their best player. But you have to sacrifice the short-term ability of the squad for the long-term morale and future-proof the squad. Yeah. So even if it means getting rid of him, bringing him, say, Cody Gakpo and another player, or some young striker, or giving someone like a Langering the whole season in the team, you might have to do that and come 11th or 12th.
Yeah.
Just to sort of improve the future of the squad. It's not going to be a linear progression. You're not going to be like, right, well, we need to get, say, a Lewandowski in to replace a Ronaldo. That just wouldn't work. No. And that's sort of what United have been doing for a while. They've been fighting fires with short-term short-term options to not benefit the long-term strategy of the club, which is why they've been hindered. So, e.g., Ibra went, who was 34, to United, or 33 at the time. Then they got Cavani in, another aging option. Yeah. Then they've got Ronaldo in. Coupled with that, they've also brought Eriksen in, who, in my opinion, isn't the smartest move for United.
No, not long-term.
Because he's 29. And it's all short-termism, and they need to adapt the strategy. Under Alex Ferguson, they were intelligent in the market. They bought off teams who were around them in the Premier League, made them weaker, and that benefited their long game. They took off rivals. You think Robin van Persie. Yeah. The short-termism was only short-termism if it depleted a rival. Other than that, they bring in young prospects who would then develop. You think back to Nani and stuff like that. So, for me, it's just the recruitment's wrong from top down. They desperately need to get rid of Ronaldo. And I personally haven't seen much from Ten Hag to think he came in as a dictator, right? That's what he was billed as. He was billed as a dictator. You build around. You build for the future. You play nice, attractive football. We haven't seen the nice, attractive football. He's begged Ronaldo to stay to start with. That does not show strong leadership. You'd say, get gone if you don't want to play for Man United. And his tactics in the first two games where he lost 2-1 to Brighton, at home, may I say, and also 4-0 to Brentford, have been absolutely woeful. The club's in disarray. The players are horrendous. You look at Maguire, how he's starting for a big club is mental after the last season. And there's no joined up thinking, and I just think they're going to go more and more downhill. I think they've got the wrong manager. Anyway, and I know it's too early to say that, but I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if they lose to, say they get 2 points from the first 6 games, for example, which is feasible because they've got Liverpool next. They've got Leicester in that run away. They've got Arsenal.
Southampton away as well.
They've got Southampton away, and I think they've got Arsenal as well.
Arsenal, yeah.
And that would bring them up to what, the 6th game? Say they get 2 points from that, or even 3 from that run. If they get a win and a draw, 4 points from 6, right? I think then they will be looking at sacking Ten Hag, because the fans will be at that point in disarray. Whether they want to back him now, that's their choice. They probably do. And then at that point, it's inevitable, isn't it? Mauricio Pochettino will end up at Man United. I don't think he's that good, but it just seems like it's the actual match made in heaven for it's been going on for years. And that's my overall thoughts on what's happening, what's wrong with United right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the main worry about United is that if they don't change this transfer strategy soon, then it's just going to snowball. They're going to keep doing what they've been doing. As you said, Ibrahimovic, he's a great short-term solution, but then he has to go. And then next, you've got Cavani coming in. That's another problem. So I think what you've seen with Arsenal, who, when they've had someone who's not really got what the club's about, what the team's about, and not really bought into what the manager's doing in Aubameyang, Arteta, straight away, he showed what he wanted to do, and he made sure that he didn't harm the squad. He let him go, and then you replaced him the summer after with Jesus, who, like we said, it's taken off arrivals, so that's a great start. Not overpaying, and he's young, and he's played in the Premier League for a few seasons now. That's the sort of thing that United need to be doing more, and getting in young, proven players. That's all.
But it's that as well. But I think the Arsenal blueprint is the most similar that you're going to get for what United need to do. They need to be ruthless. They need to rejig the squad completely. You look at the squad. I think there's a picture, and since 2019, there's like 6 players left in the Arsenal squad that are the same.
Yeah,
United just need to do that. They need to get rid of the whole team. Start afresh, bring in young players with a similar dynamic. The dynamic doesn't have to be English. It can be similar mentalities. It could be Brazilian. You think Wolverhampton Wanderers, for example, have a Portugal dynamic where all the players are signed, and that works. Like, bring in set players who are either English, Portuguese, Brazilian. It doesn't even matter what they are, but they all need to have a common goal and a common personality where they're similar in the traits, they're similar in the personalities. They have a common goal of trying to get silverware, and they want to play for Man United.
Yeah.
They don't think the world owes them a living. They need that. That would then in turn sort their wage structure out. It's going to cost a lot of money to do. And I don't think the Glazers will back Ten Hag to do it, because it's going to have a lot of cancellations of contracts to do that. It's going to be an expensive sort of thing. But if the stars aligned and the Glazers changed their minds and they wanted to back Ten Hag more, or the management more, in terms of overall, they invest in the stadium, as stated previously, and they said to Ten Hag, right, whatever you need to do, the money's there. Yeah. So you want to cancel Ronaldo's 572k a week contract, go for it. You want to cancel Maguire's contract because no one wants him, go for it. Do whatever. And here's all the money you can to bring in the players you want. Then you might have a start. But it's looking very bleak.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I don't see how it's going to... I think something has to change quick. Otherwise, they're just going to keep going down this winding road that's only got one end, really, and it's just going to end with the club in turmoil and turn into almost what Barcelona are in terms of their monetary problems.
Oh, God. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's a stretch, but I think it can happen. Barcelona's situation came out of nowhere, so I think you never know with these big clubs, but yeah.
United going bust. That would be
a shock. Yeah, but you never know.
Right. Okay. So I think I've said all I need to say on the issues at United.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I think we've covered everything we thought we should.
So what do you think in the comments below? Put what you think is wrong with United and how they can fix it. I've been Tom. This has been Alex.
Yeah.
Please be sure to like and subscribe for more from us. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.